Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Raj News. And joining us now to take a look at the news stories making headlines around the globe is a Raj News correspondent, Aron Akerejola. Hello, Aron.
Yes, good morning.
Hi, Aron.
Doctor, it's good to be here today.
Yes. Looking dapper. Like you just stepped out of the pages of GQ.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Hearing that from you, you've just made my day. It almost started off a little bit gloomy, but hearing that things, that status quo remains.
Yeah.
All right, at least.
With Labour.
Yes.
The federal government.
Yeah, the federal government. So I think we're happy. So let's actually start on that note. I tell you that an agreement between Labour and the Nigerian government on the dispute over minimum wage for workers has averted a nationwide strike that was scheduled to commence today. The agreement, which would see the nation's workers receive the minimum pay check of 30,000 naira, has been reached among Labour, organised private sector, and the federal government after a 12-hour meeting of the National Minimum Wage Tripartite Committee that was composed to resolve the dispute. The report, which was signed by all parties, would be submitted to the President Muhammadu Buhari today by 4:15 p.m. Thereafter, the President will address the nation and unveil a new national minimum wage. So,
yeah, I think after that meeting, two figures were reached: the 24,000 naira from the government and 30,000 naira from Labour, which the head of the committee says she's going to present to the president today. So I don't think a minimum wage has been released. Yes, it has been reached, but we do not know the figures. Hopefully later today, the president will make that known.
Well, I think that what has happened is encouraging, is reassuring.
Very.
Even if government found itself in a very difficult situation. We had said that, it would be quite counterproductive at this point for government to allow the country to be shut down. However, as she pointed out, what we've been told is that we will know the true situation at about 4:15 p.m. It doesn't have to be exactly 4:15 p.m., but hopefully later today, there will be a disclosure of what has been agreed upon, and that will be in the interest, of both parties, and that will be acceptable to all stakeholders involved. But I mean, this morning, I was a bit nervous trying to get onto the road. I thought that, there would have been a shutdown of Nigeria, that there will be no fuel, that there will be no electricity.
A lot of people were celebrating. It seemed like a lot of people were celebrating the fact that there was not going to be work today, because yesterday I left the office quite late, and on the island, the amount of queues at filling stations was alarming. People were stocking up in supermarkets. Like I'm saying,
Nigerians like holidays.
It's really sad. It's really sad.
Along the lines of what you are saying, somebody told me this morning, the person shall remain nameless, certainly not on television.
Yeah.
I said, why didn't they just allow us to stay at home for one day? But I think that, what is best is whatever is in the best interest
of the nation.
Of Nigeria.
Of the nation, without a doubt. All right, let's move it away from Nigeria and actually stretch our legs to the ends of this world. I tell you that a group of Iranians have threatened to overthrow the government and President Muhammadu Buhari in order to secure the release of Ibrahim el-Zakazaki, leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria. Zakazaki has been in detention since December 2015 when his followers clashed with some soldiers in Zaria, Kaduna State. The sect members have actually held a series of protests to demand his release, but the government refused even when a federal high court in Abuja granted him bail. In a video, protesters with different placards chanted, "Free, free Zakazaki." A man who appeared like the leader of the protesters criticized the federal government over the continued detention of the leader.
I don't know if we've gotten a response to this by the government, but I don't think that this is something they should just shove aside. This needs to be addressed, and really, to the face of it, a group threatening to overthrow the president of a democratically elected president of a country.
A group of Iranians. That's the key phrase in this.
Yes.
A group of Iranians threatening to overthrow the Nigerian government. I guess that's a long shot.
Yes.
That's quite ambitious.
True.
Nigeria is a sovereign state. If some Iranians want to overthrow our government, I'm sure that the kind of resistance that they will get, will be what they do not expect. However, what is interesting here is the fact that the point we made about the international dimension of what appears to be the persecution of the Islamic movement of Nigeria. That movement, also known as the Shiites movement, is pro-Iranian, pro-Palestinian, pro-Iraq. So we have made a point about the international dimension of it. And there have been protests, even in the past, in Iran, on the streets of Iran, supporting Zakzaki. Okay, but as to some people, some Iranians threatening to overthrow the Nigerian government, no. I think that must be a joke. But however, government should take notice of it, just to realize that whatever we do in Nigeria has an international dimension because we live in a global village. With the specific case of a Zakzaki, I mean, many groups, apart from these Iranians who are just speaking of, have said, look, a man deserves his day in court, and court rulings should be respected. What is at issue here is the refusal of the Nigerian government, of the Buhari administration, to respect the rights of Zakzaki and his wife. So it looks like he's been persecuted on the basis of, faith, religion, belief. The second part, of course, is the persecution and the continued assault on the human dignity of his followers. Okay, so these are the issues, and I think that the Nigerian government should know that whatever religion, whatever belief anybody ascribes to, those persons do not need to be persecuted. However, if offenses are committed, then such persons, of course, should be brought to justice because nobody is superior to the laws of Nigeria. But what is problematic here is what looks like, a deliberate persecution of Zakzaki and his followers and a reenactment in Nigeria of this global sectarian conflict between Sunnis and Shiites.
I'm always about the optics, and when the optics doesn't look good, it's always the onus is on the government of the day to actually address that. Like we've been saying for weeks on ending, that as it stands right now, we should always respect the rule of law, especially when the international community is watching. And whether we like it or not, the Shiites know that whatever they do, the more they actually try to probably aggravate this issue and they get a response from the government of Nigeria or from the military or the police, like we've seen in time past, at that point, it's easy for them to cry foul and they will be heard because at that point, they feel that they will just cry that they're being persecuted and the world will take notice. And as long as it keeps pushing on, we are simply playing to the hands. All we simply need to do at the end of the day is find a way to nip this in the bud and make probably a public show of this. Either take this man to court publicly and actually say that, okay, these are the offenses he has committed, or probably these were the things he actually contravened, and this is the reason why we're still holding this man in the interest of national security or for whatever reason. But the fact that he's still being held till this day.
The law does not allow the state to hold anybody indefinitely.
True.
Yeah, if any offense has been committed, the statutes are very clear. You take the person to court. The person has the right to fair hearing. And if the person seeks an enforcement of his fundamental rights and the court rules and says, look, this person should be released or granted bail, either administrative or court bail, the state has a responsibility to show good example by respecting the law. But in this particular case, the Nigerian state has refused to do so.
But maybe they might want to say that it might be the interest of national security, and that's why they're still holding it.
We have had that argument. The rule of law cannot be subordinated to national security. In fact, national security itself must be governed by the rule of law.
True talk. Well, I'm just hoping that they do it well, because like Saudi Arabia has actually learned the very hard way. You cannot take laws into your hands, do whatever you like with your citizens, and expect the international community to fold their arms and still want to pally you up. They are actually feeling the full brunt of it right now with the whole Khashoggi issue that has actually spiraled out of control. All right, let's still move it on. I'll tell you that the University of Cambridge Local Examination Syndicate, now known as the Cambridge Assessment, says that it can only release the certificate of President Muhammadu Buhari if the president requests for it. The exam body said this in response to inquiries by Nigerians interested in authenticating Buhari's certificates. Cambridge, a United Kingdom-based examination body, oversaw the conduct of the final year secondary school examination in Nigeria and placement into foreign universities in the 1960s. In a statement on Monday, the examination body said that for it to release a candidate's certificate, the student must request for it.
I thought we're over this phase of certificate clarification and authentication. And this is up again. Yesterday we were speaking to Garba Shehu, and he said it was just pure entertainment. I felt, and I put it to him yesterday, that I felt the president himself was part of this entertainment for him to have allowed it linger to this time. This could have been nipped in 2015. He ran in 2015, and we are seeing the same thing playing out in 2019. For a lot of people, there are other issues to focus on. They are issue-based situations, problems, challenges that should be talked about right now and not certificate issue. I think it's just flogging a dead horse over and over again for a lot of people.
The informed legal opinion is that this is a storm in a teacup.
Yes.
And that, if you look at the relevant provisions of the Nigerian Constitution as to the qualification of candidates for office, and we had Aron Akerejola here yesterday who helped to clarify it. And before then, we had other lawyers who helped to explain the spirit and the letter of Section 131D and Section 318, which interprets, the provisions with regard to qualifications. So, but Nigerians, as we were told yesterday by Garba Shehu, Nigerians love drama. So I don't think this will harm President Buhari in one way or the other.
Then why did he have to do the whole media circles of presenting his certificate, or why he presented his certificate to him when he knows, or probably his legal team would have informed him that you don't have a problem here. So why did he have to go through all that drama? Put it on social media. It was everywhere. Everybody was talking about it, evaluating the picture that was on the certificate. He didn't need to do that. All he needed to just do for once, probably just look away and just move on. And with time, it will all blow past because he actually holds no water. At the moment the president decided to go out there and snap a picture with his WIAC certificate, then he put himself as a sitting dog on the fence to actually make himself an easy target. And look at what it keeps dragging on when he should have just kept quiet and let it just pass by.
Aron, maybe you two should take a picture with your WIAC certificate. Ahead of when you decide in the future to run for office.
Because it was just.
I think it should be the NYSC. I'm not sure. Aron, did you have your NYSC certificate?
I did.
Okay, great.
Oh my God.
Anyway, you see, Garba Shehu is right. He says it's all about entertainment.
But why are they fueling that particular machinery if they know that it's all about entertainment? Some people are trying to amuse themselves. Some people are trying to distract the nation from what is real. The real priorities are. Why are they fueling it is the question. It's really sad. It's really sad. Well, let's actually tell you that the day is upon us. Today is the 6th of November. American voters are slated to head to the ballot and cast their votes in midterm elections that will decide the tenure of the rest of U.S. President Donald Trump's term. The vote will decide all 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 35 of the 100 Senate seats, and 39 states and territorial governorships, among all other local and state offices. All U.S. governors are serve 4-year terms, except those in the states of Vermont and New Hampshire, where the terms span 2 years. In several states across the country, closely watched gubernatorial races are heating up as election day nears. Today's election day, 6th of November, midterm elections begin.
There's been a build-up to this.
Massive.
This midterm election, like other midterm elections, but this one more so than other previous ones under other presidencies, is like a referendum on the Trump presidency.
True.
And President Trump has probably campaigned more than any of the candidates. I mean, he's not running for office, but he understands the implications that, this will be a referendum on his government. And he has used the opportunity in a way to his advantage. I mean, in the lead up to the midterm elections, he has taken some steps. The sanctions on Iraq, the muscle flexing over the trade relations with China, all of that grandstanding over NAFTA, between Mexico, Canada, and America. And then all that talk about the 14th Amendment and citizenship. All of that was President Trump, playing to his conservative base and trying to ensure that as America goes to midterm elections, it will be to his advantage, and the conservative base that supported him in his own election will be rallied, and he will get that support. However, the race, I think, is very close in terms of what will happen in Congress, because you will see that even the Democrats are not lying low. In the last few weeks, President Obama, leading the Democrats, had to also get into the competition, into the race to campaign on behalf of Democrat candidates. But at the end of the day, what we should note is that this is like no other midterm election. More young people are excited. More women are involved. Women particularly who think that President Trump is anti-women, is misogynist, And if you look at the pattern of the early voting, more persons than came out in the previous election have voted already because the voting has already started. So it will be interesting to see what comes out of this, because it will have long-term implications for the stability, the confidence of the Trump administration and his own future chances if he seeks a second term, which I guess he will.
I'm hoping that people come out to vote, because I heard a lot of people cry foul, and I was a little bit disgusted. You don't come out to vote and you're complaining that President Trump became president. And I'm wondering, it's almost unheard of. Because the point is this: it's only when you come out to vote that your votes will actually count for something, and at the end of the day, effect the change you're looking to actually effect. And it's unfortunate that there was low turnout from the Democrats, in the presidency election. But this time around, I'm actually hoping, like you've just said, that the Democrats come out en masse and actually vote. Let's get to see these things begin to reflect in the results that will come out in the coming days. And
after the 2016 presidential election in the U.S., I think it's almost impossible for anybody to predict outcomes.
No, but before then, people said that they said that they were going to come out to vote against Donald Trump, but nobody showed up on election day.
Rhetoric of division that he was preaching was one of the bloodiest campaigns we have seen in the U.S. President Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And although she won the popular vote, he became the president. So it's almost difficult to predict elections. And we are seeing the same rhetoric that President Trump has deployed into these campaigns. Like Dr. Abati rightly said, he's not on the ballot. But he has managed to make this all about himself, talking about migrants, talking about the caravan.
Brett Kavanaugh's issue
exactly.
also.
So he's in the headline. He has a strategy. How this works for him and his party to retain Congress is left to be seen.
Well, at some point, maybe later today, we'll be able to see what the exit polls look like across the country. But the more important questions will be in terms of the demographics. How would minorities vote?
Yes.
Would they still support the Democrats, or they will go to some of them will support the Republicans? Yes. And then the youths, the young people of America, how would they vote, on the basic issues? But one of the expectations will be that, we may see some surprising changes in some settled red and blue zones. And we may perhaps, which is more interesting, see some minorities emerging. A first, immigrant minority emerging, in example, as a member of the Senate,
or House of Representatives.
A woman possibly emerging for the first time as a governor, in the United States.
True talk.
These are some of the possibilities, but we'll see what the exit polls say as the day advances.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, still in the U.S., let's say the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has warned that the U.S. will exert relentless pressure on Iran unless it changes its revolutionary course. His comments came hours after the Trump administration restored all sanctions lifted under the 2015 nuclear deal, targeting core parts of Iran's economy. However, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani earlier struck a defiant tone, saying that the country will continue selling oil and will proudly break the sanctions. Mr. Pompeo is quoted as saying the Iranian regime has a choice. It can either do a 180-degree turn from its outlaw course of action and act like a normal country, or it can see its economic crumble, end of quote.
Well, this again is part of the election season bravado coming directly from President Trump. But before now, he has said he wanted a renegotiation of the 2015 nuclear deal.
Yes.
is the only one complaining. The other parties to that nuclear deal are not complaining. UK, France, Germany, they made it very clear that, Iran has in fact complied with that deal, a deal which President Trump says makes no sense, it has to be renegotiated, is to the disadvantage of the United States. The same point that the United States made about NAFTA, which it got renegotiated. The same complaints that the United States under his watch has made about the International Criminal Court. The same point that it has made about, the International Court of Justice. Now, again, the point I made earlier about President Trump, election time, trying to play to his conservative base and to look like, he's the macho man of the world and taking advantage of the superior status of the United States. Now, before now, as far back as August, sanctions have been placed on Iran, and we saw the effect of that. The effect, of course, is that, inflation rose in Iran, the economy was affected. Then President Hassan Rouhani also has found himself in a difficult situation, and is likely to find himself in an even more difficult situation because these new sanctions will place him under more threat. And the hardliners in Iran, are already saying they want him out. But the supreme leader has not gone in that direction yet. So the U.S. at one level may be trying to force regime change in Iran because once you put the economy under pressure, it will affect ordinary people.
True.
So that's one level of it. The UK, France, Germany, they're saying, look, they will support European businesses, those businesses that would like to still do business with Iran by creating special purpose vehicles through which they can bypass the effect of the American sanctions. However, Secretary of State Pompeo has dismissed that. He has poo-pooed that. He has been boasting that over 100 businesses have turned their back on Iran. But what is the implication generally for the international community? Oil prices will rise. And since that announcement, oil prices have risen. As Nigerians, we may say, well,
some people are about to get to that.
That may be an advantage for us. But you see, you could create an energy crisis, and it could precipitate conflict. When you look at the position of Russia, you look at the position of China, and you look at threats about closing, the Strait of Hormuz and all of that, and Iran also talking strong. I think that for the interest of global peace, that's what interests us. I think we should be calling for negotiation, focus on peace, focus on compromise. However, the IAEA, says that, Iran has been quite compliant in terms of its commitment to, reducing its uranium enrichment program.
But President Benjamin Netanyahu would actually beg to differ.
Well, Israel is very happy.
Of course. Because it's playing into their own game plan completely. Netanyahu, I don't know, he's always had a vendetta against Iran. And
no, in terms of global politics,
yes.
Israel and Iran, they don't see eye to eye.
Yes.
So you can't blame the Israelis for supporting the United States.
So, okay, well, I'm just hoping, because he keeps putting pressure on the fact that Iran has not complied with that 2015 nuclear deal.
Well, Iran is struggling for its economy because these new sanctions will hit banks, oil importation, and anybody who tries to do business with them. Well, we see how this plays out as well. Aron, that's all we can take this morning.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure.
And that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now.